So you're sitting across from your kid and they say something that lands as deep criticism, not light, not playful, the kind of jibe that goes straight to your heart. And I remember this with my boy Jude. He said something that on the surface was about my behavior. But the way that I heard it was, you dad, you're failing. And I felt it immediately. Flush in the cheeks, anger rising through my chest. And suddenly I wasn't listening anymore. I was in my own head, building my case against him, wanting to shut him down, wanting him to feel wrong for saying what he said. And the frightening part, it felt justified. Welcome to The Truth About Alcohol. I am your host, Lee Davy, and this is a podcast for people who know that something about their drinking doesn't quite add up, and they want to understand why stopping can feel so much harder than it should. No labels, no judgments, just honest conversations about alcohol and change. And if you can hear me breathing a little bit nuts, it's because I just got down on the ground and did 50 push-ups. So that's why I'm like, okay. Anyway, onto the podcast. So I think if you're a parent, you have to agree that criticism from your child is very different. When a colleague criticizes you, you can often stay professional. When a stranger criticizes you, unless your inner child gets really, really triggered, you can usually dismiss it. But when your child criticizes you, it goes straight through you. And I felt this recently with my boy. He said something on paper that was feedback for him, right? He was giving me feedback on something, but the way that I heard it was an accusation. And there's usually this split second, this tiny space between what he says and the way that I react. Only it doesn't feel like space. It feels like momentum. It feels like him giving me the feedback merges straight into me defending, correcting, leaning forward, right? Because my whole energy and demeanor has changed because I just am so angry, right? And afterwards, when the dust has settled and he's gone his way, I've gone my way, I justify it to myself. He shouldn't speak to me like that. I'm the parent. He doesn't understand what I carry, what I have to do in my role. He's so selfish. He needs to grow up. And I sound so certain. And I could go to other people if I had an echo chamber and tell them, and they would say back to me, yes, he is all these things, right? But here's the key thing. Underneath that certainty that I have, that is echoed back to me by people who want to feel safe by agreeing with me, there's something far less stable going on. There is a part of me that needs validation as a good father. Do you ever get that? To all you fathers out there, is there a part of you when it comes to your kids, or even more for me, your wife, that you want to be credited, viewed as, receive feedback that you are a good dad, right? And in that moment when my son was giving me feedback, I didn't get the feedback I wanted, which is you're a good dad. And that's what hurt. It's not the language he used, it's what it implies, or what parts of my psyche made it imply. And that was, Lee Davy, you are not the father you think you are. And that's what lands. And here's what's honest for me, right? It might land in my body first, but I don't notice it. Like I was in the car the other day and my car automatically put the brakes on. And in those moments when the car put the brakes on, I felt a real visceral lurching, almost like vomiting feeling in my stomach, right? That is a response that I felt in my body. But when my boy is giving me the feedback that I'm not showing up, I'm not doing enough in his life, it doesn't land in the body like that to me. Probably something goes on, but I don't notice it. But what I do notice, what I do remember is the thoughts, and they come fast and they're very believable. They are certain, they're convincing, right? And these thoughts are, he is out of line. He doesn't understand. He's being disrespectful. And that story forms really quickly in a heartbeat. And while that story is forming, and probably it's because it's forming, it's not even forming, that story is formed. And it's almost like I'm going into the filing system of my brain and I'm saying to myself, what happens when my son criticizes me? This is my response. So my thoughts are coming. And then in correlation to that, my body's shifting, tightening, heeding, bracing. But I don't see that part. All I see and all I hear is justifications. And by the time I'm aware of what's happening, I'm already mid-reaction, right? I'm already angry. I'm already defensive. I'm already refusing to see him, hear him, or to make him feel like he matters. And this is where something else interesting comes in, right? There's this line that gets quoted about a lot, and it's between stimulus and response, there's a space. Between stimulus and response, there's a space. Any of you who've read the book Man's Search for Meaning know that that quote comes from Viktor Frankl. And he wrote that after surviving the concentration camps of World War II. He wasn't talking about parenting arguments. He was talking about the last human freedom left when everything else has been stripped away from you. And most people listen to Frankl's quote and think it means chill out, pause, be calm, choose wisely. But that's not how it feels when you're sat in the kitchen arguing over the kitchen table with your kid. In real life, that space between stimulus and response, it doesn't feel spacious at all. It feels microscopic. And it shows up as a first thought forming in your mind, which, as I've said previously, he's wrong. And I need to shut this down. Now, if I can catch the thought forming, not after I've spoken, but as it forms, then I found that space. That is the stimulus response gap in everyday life. It's not philosophical, it's practical. And I don't think awareness of this gap is enough on its own. I don't think you're going to listen to this and be like, oh, fuck, there's a gap between stimulus and response. And that is the most important thing. So I don't erupt on my child, right? I don't think that is enough. Understanding this concept, it doesn't change your behavior. But repeatedly noticing the surge, noticing the thoughts, noticing the temperature in your body and the way your body changes, noticing your certainty, your righteousness, that does change something. It really does. Awareness is king here. Not instantly, but gradually. Because the more you can raise your awareness around what is going on in these moments, right? And you do that by really reflecting on the fact that it went wrong, right? The surge of energy, the surge of emotion, the surge of your parts wanting to step in the ring and take over, they become more recognizable earlier. And when it is more recognizable and it is earlier, it is interruptible, right? Interruptible is a good word. All right, you can interrupt it. Now, here's why this moment feels far much heavier than it looks. Most fathers don't just become dads and that's it. Usually they make a vow, right? Maybe your father was distant. Maybe he was volatile. Maybe he wasn't there at all. Maybe when he was physically or emotionally violent. And somewhere inside of you, you quietly decided, I'm not going to be like him. I am not going to be that dad. So you try to build an identity around being more present, more controlled. So when your son criticizes you or it comes across as criticism, it's not just about behavior. It threatens that vow, right? It whispers, what if you're already becoming, as a father, the very thing you despised in your own? And that's why the surge is disproportionate, because it's not about respect. It's about identity. So let's imagine it all goes wrong, all goes Pete Tong, like it did with me, right? You defend, he feels dismissed, goes upstairs, suddenly you're in a quiet house. This is the real moment, right? When you're alone with the echo. You ask yourself, did I overreact? Am I becoming someone I don't want to become? And this is where the uncomfortableness starts to build inside your body. Now it's not anger. What is replacing the anger is doubt, shame, guilt, exposure, embarrassment, humiliation, right? Worry, concern. And this is where sometimes for a lot of men, alcohol enters the picture. Not in the argument itself, but afterwards in the silence. You don't want to sit in doubt. So the evening becomes about finding relief. And this is what I call the after the argument loop. And your drinking of the alcohol isn't about pleasure. It's about stopping that internal replay that's going on and on and on in your mind and is likely to be repeated by your wife or your other siblings or your other kids if they see this happening in real time. So if this lands for you, just notice your body for a second. Just think of the last time someone really close to you criticized you. Doesn't have to be a kid. It could be your wife. It could be your boss. It could be your mom, your dad, your brother, your sister, really close friend. And they're criticizing you, or they're giving you feedback that you're taking as criticism. Where did it land? If you're like me, very often it lands in my gut. Maybe it lands in your chest, your throat, in your head. Don't analyze it. Just invite the sensation into your awareness. And then just breathe out slowly, yeah? When your child criticizes you, it does touch identity, but it does so much more than that. It destabilizes the hierarchy. Because as the dad, you're the one who corrects, you're the one who guides. Or at least that's the way it's been, right? And suddenly that direction is flipped. Your kid is evaluating you, judging you. And that reversal can be destabilizing. Not because you're insecure, but because a part of you equates authority with safety. And when you're not in control, you feel unsafe. This is why you maybe call it disrespect. But underneath that word is something far more primitive. It's a loss of position, a loss of ground. And when that position, that ground wobbles, the instinct isn't pure reflection, it's restoration. I need to restore order. I need to restore control. And this is why the urge isn't just to respond, it is to overpower, is to assert your power over them. Not because you want to harm your kids, but because there's a part of you that desperately wants that equilibrium back. It needs to keep you safe. That is the protection. Now, many men carry an image of themselves. Maybe you think you're the steady one, the rational one, the calm one, the authoritative one. But parenting doesn't protect your image. What it does is it exposes your nervous system. Now, your son doesn't want you to be flawless, but parts of you do want you to be flawless. And that's when the image cracks, the relief becomes so much more urgent, and why drinking alcohol feels so logical. You don't want to be a rebel. You don't even want pleasure. What you're doing when you reach for the drink is you're reaching for stability. And every time relief becomes automatic, reflection, the ability to reflect and repair your rupture, it weakens. The reviewing period, it numbs out, and the pattern tightens. Now, it's tempting to believe that once you understand this stimulus response gap, that it widens. But like I said earlier, insight alone isn't enough. You have to widen that gap through repetition, through noticing the urge again and again and again. My voice just changed. My body's speeding up. One that I like to use is, shit, I'm in Hare energy, not Tortoise. I'm going too fast. I need to be slowing down. And this is not philosophy, it's training. And if you train hard enough for this, if you commit yourself to it, like you commit to wanting to be the best father you could be for your children, then slowly the surge becomes more recognizable before it becomes action. And that is a shift. Not perfection, not suppression, not regression. It's recognition. And in that recognition, there's room. There's room to pause, there's room to choose, and there's room to repair. Now, if this moment feels familiar, especially the silence and the quiet, the uncomfortable quiet after conflict, then there is a private space designed for moments like this. Not to analyze them or to fix them, but just to let them settle before they harden. And if you want to explore that, you'll find the details in the show notes, okay? And if this pattern shows up repeatedly in your closest relationships, doesn't matter who they are, and it's really hurting you and it's hurting them more importantly, that's the kind of work that one-to-one coaching is built for. Not to make you less reactive, but to help you recognize the surge before it decides for you, and to create effective repair when you have had, or the surge has resulted in a rupture, okay? So you don't have to act on that, but just notice the next time that a surge comes up, okay? Criticism doesn't hurt because it's loud. It hurts because it touches a vow that you never spoke. And that is the truth about alcohol. Much love and strive on, everybody. Until next time.